At just 22 years old, she scrubbed floors in a mansion that should have been hers. Everyone mocked her torn uniform and calloused hands. But one day, a forgotten locket revealed a secret that shook the entire household to its core. What truth had been buried for over 2 decades? Sit back with your popcorn and find out as we delve into this story. The morning sun poured through the tall windows of the Thompson mansion in Lagos. The marble floors gleamed like mirrors, reflecting the crystal chandeliers that hung from the ceiling. But down in the servant quarters, the light barely reached. In a small corner room, Lydia woke up before dawn, as she did every day. Her mattress was thin, her blanket worn, but her eyes held a quiet strength. She tied her faded uniform and stepped into the grand hallway where her real work began. From the kitchen she heard laughter. The other maids, Clara and Rose, stood by the counter drinking tea. When Lydia entered, Clara's eyes narrowed with disgust. "Ah, the village rat is awake," Clara said, her voice dripping with venom. "Did you sleep well on that dirty mattress of yours?" Rose giggled, covering her mouth. "I heard she still uses the same uniform from 3 years ago. Doesn't she have shame?" Lydia said nothing. She picked up her bucket and mop, her face calm, her lips pressed together. Clara stepped closer, blocking her path. "When I talk to you, you answer. Or are you too proud now?" Lydia looked up slowly, her voice soft but firm. "I have work to do, Sister Clara. Please excuse me." Clara scoffed and stepped aside. "Work? That's all you're good for. A nobody who will die, a nobody." As Lydia walked away, her hands trembled slightly, but she did not let them see her cry. She had learned long ago that tears only made the mockery worse. What none of them knew was that the same floor she cleaned held the secret of her true identity. Upstairs in the grand study, Mr. Richard Thompson sat behind a large mahogany desk. His face was hard, his jaw tight. Papers were scattered in front of him, but his mind was elsewhere. He pressed his hand against his chest, feeling a dull ache that had been growing for weeks. His assistant, James, stood by the door. "Sir," the doctor called again. "He insists you come for a checkup." Richard waved his hand dismissively. "I don't have time for doctors. I have a business to run." James hesitated, then spoke gently. "Sir, your health is important. You've been working non-stop since my wife died." Richard interrupted, his voice cold. "Don't remind me." The room fell silent. James bowed slightly and left. Richard leaned back in his chair, staring at the portrait of a beautiful woman on the wall. Her name was Grace. She had died 22 years ago, shortly after giving birth. Or so he had been told. The baby, his only daughter, had died with her. At least, that was the story his sister Margaret had given him. But lately, strange dreams had been visiting him at night. Dreams of a woman's voice calling his name. Dreams of a baby crying in the dark. That same afternoon, Lydia was in the garden watering the roses. The sun was hot, and sweat rolled down her face. Suddenly she heard footsteps behind her. It was David, the mansion's driver. He was a tall, gentle man in his late 20s with kind eyes and a calm smile. "Good afternoon, Sister Lydia," he greeted, his voice warm. Lydia turned and smiled faintly. "Good afternoon, Brother David." He handed her a bottle of cold water. "You've been working since morning. Please rest small." Lydia accepted the water gratefully. "Thank you. You are always kind to me." David's face grew serious. "Why do you let them treat you like that? Clara and the others, you don't deserve it." Lydia's smile faded. She looked down at the flowers. "What can I do? I have nowhere else to go. This job is all I have." Before David could respond, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Lydia, where are you?" It was Clara, calling from the balcony. Lydia quickly handed the bottle back to David and hurried inside. David watched her go, his fists clenched. He whispered to himself, "She deserves better than this." Inside the mansion, preparations were underway for a grand dinner. Mr. Thompson's niece, Vanessa, had returned from London. She was a spoiled, sharp-tongued woman in her mid-20s who loved luxury and attention. That evening she swept into the living room, wearing an expensive red dress and diamond earrings. Clara and Rose rushed to serve her. "Welcome back, Miss Vanessa," Clara said, bowing slightly. As Vanessa walked past, she spotted Lydia scrubbing the floor near the stairs. She stopped, her lips curling into a cruel smile. Oh my God, is this the maid everyone talks about? The one who looks like she crawled out of the village? Vanessa walked closer, her heels clicking on the marble. She bent down and tilted her head, staring at Lydia like she was an insect. You know, I've seen beggars on the street who dress better than you. How do you even look at yourself in the mirror? Lydia kept scrubbing, her eyes fixed on the floor. Vanessa's voice grew sharper. I'm talking to you. Are you deaf? Lydia finally looked up, her face calm, but her eyes filled with quiet pain. I hear you, Ma. Then answer properly when I speak to you. Vanessa snapped. You should be grateful you even have this job. People like you are meant to serve people like me. Never forget that. She stood up and walked away, laughing with Clara. Lydia's hands shook as she dipped the brush into the bucket. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she quickly wiped it away. She whispered to herself, God, if you can hear me, please let this suffering end. Later that night, Mr. Thompson sat alone in the dining room. The table was set with fine china and candles, but he had no appetite. His chest pain had returned, sharper this time. He clutched the edge of the table, breathing heavily. Suddenly he heard footsteps. It was Lydia carrying a tray of water. She paused when she saw him. Sir, are you all right? Richard's vision blurred. He tried to speak, but his body gave way. He collapsed to the floor. Lydia screamed, Help! Somebody help! She dropped the tray and rushed to his side, kneeling beside him. Her hands trembled as she held his head gently. Sir, please stay with me. Please. Richard's eyes fluttered open. For a brief moment as he looked at her face, something strange stirred in his heart. Her eyes reminded him of Grace. James and the other staff rushed in. They lifted Richard and carried him to his room. The doctor was called immediately. Lydia stood in the corner, her hands still shaking. David came to her side. Are you okay? Lydia nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. I don't know why, but when I saw him fall, my heart broke. David looked at her with concern. You have a good heart, Lydia. That's why. But deep inside, neither of them knew that this moment had set something in motion, something that would soon change everything. The next morning, Clara stood in the hallway whispering to Vanessa. Her eyes were filled with jealousy. Did you see how Mr. Thompson looked at that girl yesterday, after she helped him? Vanessa's face twisted with anger. I saw it. And I don't like it. She's getting too comfortable here. Clara leaned closer. What if we do something about it? If we don't stop her now, she might climb too high. You know how some of these village girls are. They use pity to manipulate rich men. Vanessa smiled slowly, a wicked plan forming in her mind. I have an idea. Follow me. That afternoon, Vanessa went into her room and took out a diamond bracelet. It was one of the most expensive pieces she owned, a gift from her late mother. She placed it carefully on her dresser, then called Lydia. Lydia, come here. I need you to clean my room. Lydia came quickly, carrying her cleaning supplies. Yes, Ma. Vanessa watched her closely, her eyes following every movement. Make sure you clean everywhere. I mean everywhere. I'll be back in an hour. And don't touch my jewelry. As soon as Vanessa left, Clara slipped into the room through the side door. She moved quickly and quietly, like a snake in the grass. She grabbed the bracelet from the dresser and looked around. Lydia was bent over scrubbing the bathroom tiles, her back turned. Clara carefully lifted the edge of Lydia's cleaning apron and tucked the bracelet into a hidden pocket. Then she left as silently as she had come. An hour later, Vanessa returned with Clara, Rose, and James. She screamed dramatically, her voice echoing through the hallway. Where's my bracelet? My diamond bracelet is missing, Clara gasped, playing her part perfectly. Ma, are you sure? Maybe you kept it somewhere else. No, it was right here on my dresser. Someone stole it! Vanessa's eyes blazed with false fury. All eyes turned to Lydia. She stood frozen, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. I didn't take anything, Ma. I swear on my life. Vanessa's voice rose even higher. You were the only one in this room. No one else came in. Search her! James hesitated, his face troubled. Miss Vanessa, maybe we should call the police and let them handle this properly. Search her now. I want my bracelet back. Clara stepped forward eagerly and roughly pulled at Lydia's apron. The bracelet fell to the ground with a loud clink that seemed to echo like thunder. Everyone gasped. Lydia's eyes widened in absolute horror. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. No, I didn't. I don't know how that got there. Please, believe me. I have never stolen anything in my life. Vanessa's face lit up with false tears that seemed rehearsed. You thief! I trusted you in my room and you stole from me. Do you know how much that bracelet costs? More than you'll ever see in your entire miserable life. Clara added fuel to the fire, her voice loud so everyone could hear. I always knew she was a criminal. Village people like her can't be trusted. They come here pretending to be humble, but inside they are thieves waiting for their chance. Rose joined in. Yes, I once suspected she was looking at my things too. Now I know why. Lydia fell to her knees, her voice breaking into sobs. Please, I didn't do this. Somebody is lying. Somebody put it there. I don't even know where that pocket in my apron came from. Please, you have to believe me. But no one believed her. James shook his head sadly, his eyes filled with pity but his duty clear. I'm sorry, Lydia. I have to report this to Mr. Thompson. Within minutes, Richard was informed. Despite his doctor's orders to rest, he came downstairs, his face hard as stone, his eyes cold. Lydia stood before him, tears streaming down her face, her body shaking. Sir, I didn't steal anything. I swear on everything I hold dear, I would never do such a thing. Richard looked at her for a long moment. His heart wanted to believe her. Something in her eyes, something in the way she looked at him, reminded him of Grace's honesty and purity. But the evidence was there. The bracelet had been found in her possession. Pack your things, he said coldly, though his voice carried a hint of pain. You are dismissed. Lydia's world shattered into a million pieces. Sir, please. This job is all I have. If you send me away, I have nowhere to go. No family. No friends. Nothing. Richard turned his back, unable to look at her tears. I said leave. Vanessa and Clara smiled in triumph, their eyes gleaming with satisfaction. David stood at the corner, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white, his heart heavy with rage and helplessness. He wanted to speak, to defend her, but he knew it would cost him his job too. And if he lost his job, he couldn't help her at all. As Lydia walked out of the mansion, carrying her small bag with her few belongings, she looked back one last time. The place she had worked for 3 years, the place that had been her only home, her only shelter, her only source of income. Now it was gone. She sat outside the gate under the hot afternoon sun and cried until her voice was gone, until her throat was raw, until she had no more tears left to shed. David couldn't take it anymore. After the house had settled that evening, he went to Lydia's small room to pack the rest of her belongings. As he folded her old blanket, something fell from beneath the mattress. It was a small silver locket. David picked it up carefully. It was old, scratched but still beautiful. Curious, he opened it. Inside was a faded photograph. On one side was the face of a woman. David's breath caught. It was Grace Thompson, Mr. Thompson's late wife. On the other side was a picture of a baby, and beneath it, initials were engraved. L.T. David's hands began to shake. L.T. Lydia Thompson? His mind raced. He looked at the date inscribed on the back of the locket. It was the same year Grace died. The same year the baby was said to have died. Without wasting another second, David rushed to Mr. Thompson's study. He knocked urgently. Sir, please. I need to show you something. Richard looked up, annoyed. David, I'm busy. Sir, this is about Lydia. Richard's jaw tightened. I don't want to hear that name again. David stepped forward boldly. Sir, please, just look at this. He placed the locket on the desk. Richard glanced at it, then froze. Slowly he picked it up. His face went pale. His hands trembled as he opened it. When he saw Grace's face, tears filled his eyes. Where did you get this? He whispered. It fell from Lydia's belongings, sir. She's been keeping it all these years. Richard stared at the initials. LT, Lydia, Thompson? His voice cracked. No, this can't be. David's voice was firm. Sir, I think Lydia is your daughter. Richard's world collapsed. He stood up, knocking the chair over. My daughter died. My sister told me she died with Grace. David shook his head. Sir, what if she lied? Richard's face twisted with pain and rage. Margaret! He stormed out of the study and down the hall. David followed closely. Richard burst into his sister's room without knocking. Margaret, a sharp-faced woman in her 50s, looked up in shock. Richard, what is— Tell me the truth! Richard shouted, holding up the locket. Where is my daughter? Margaret's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Richard stepped closer, his voice shaking. You told me my baby died. You told me Grace's death took her too. But this locket? It belonged to Grace. And it's been with Lydia all these years. Tell me the truth, Margaret. Margaret's lips trembled. Tears began to fall. I did it for the family. Richard's eyes widened. What did you do? Margaret broke down. I paid the nurse. I paid her to take the baby away after Grace died. I told you she was dead so I could manage the company. You were too weak with grief. Someone had to be strong. Richard staggered backward. You took my daughter from me. You let me believe she was dead for 22 years. Margaret sobbed. I thought it was for the best. Richard's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. You destroyed my life. Get out of my house, now. Margaret fell to her knees. Richard, please, get out! His roar echoed through the mansion. Security was called. Margaret was escorted out, crying and begging. But Richard's heart was too broken to hear her. The next morning, David drove through the streets of Lagos, searching for Lydia. He finally found her at a small roadside shelter near the bus station, where homeless people sometimes slept. She was sitting on the ground, her back against a concrete wall, her face hollow, her eyes empty, and staring at nothing. When she saw David approaching, she looked away in shame. What do you want? To mock me too? To remind me of what a failure I am? David knelt beside her, his voice gentle and filled with emotion. Lydia, please come with me. I have something very important to tell you. I have nothing left. No job, no home, no future, just let me be. Let me disappear in peace. David took her hand, and for the first time she didn't pull away. You have everything. You just don't know it yet. Please trust me one more time. Confused, exhausted, and too tired to resist, Lydia followed him into the car. As they drove back to the mansion, her heart filled with dread and confusion. Why are you taking me back there? They threw me out. They called me a thief. They destroyed what little reputation I had. David smiled softly, tears in his own eyes. Just trust me. Everything is about to change. When they arrived at the mansion gates, Lydia's whole body tensed. I can't go in there. Please, David, don't make me face them again. You won't be facing them as a maid anymore, David said quietly. Today, you'll walk in as who you truly are. The entire household had been gathered in the main hall. Clara, Rose, James, the cook, the gardener, and all the staff stood in nervous silence. Vanessa stood near the front, her arms crossed, looking annoyed at being summoned. At the center of the room stood Mr. Richard Thompson. His eyes were red and swollen from crying, his face aged with pain. But there was also something else in his expression. Hope, determination, love. When Lydia stepped inside, still in her torn uniform, still covered in dust from the street, the room fell deathly silent. Every eye turned to her. She wanted to run, to disappear, but David's hand on her back gently encouraged her forward. Richard's breath caught in his throat. He walked toward her slowly, his hands trembling, his eyes drinking in every detail of her face. Lydia! She stepped back, afraid, confused, her heart racing. Sir, I didn't steal anything. I swear on my mother's grave. I don't know how that bracelet got in my apron. Please believe me. Richard shook his head, tears streaming down his face freely now. I know you didn't. I should have believed you from the beginning. I should have trusted what my heart was telling me. He held up the locket, opening it so she could see. "Do you know what this is?" Lydia's eyes widened as she recognized it. Her hand went to her neck where it usually hung. "My locket. That's my locket. The woman who raised me, Mama Ruth. She gave it to me before she died. She said my real mother wanted me to have it. She said it was the only thing she had from my birth." "How did you—" Richard's voice broke with emotion. "That woman in the picture is Grace Thompson, my wife, your mother. She died the day you were born, or rather, the day I was told you both died." The room gasped collectively. Lydia's legs gave out. She fell to her knees, her mind unable to process what she was hearing. "No, that's not possible. I'm nobody. I'm just a poor village girl. I'm a maid. How can I be—" Richard knelt before her on the marble floor that she had scrubbed 1,000 times, his hands shaking as he held her face gently, tenderly, the way a father holds his child. "You cleaned my house every day, not knowing it was your own. You scrubbed the floors of the mansion that should have been yours by birthright. You slept in a tiny room while your real bedroom lay empty upstairs. I'm so sorry, my daughter. I'm so sorry for every moment of pain you endured. I'm sorry for not protecting you. I'm sorry for not knowing you when you were right in front of me all along." Lydia's tears came like a flood, years of pain and loneliness pouring out. You're my father? My real father?" Richard pulled her into his arms and wept like he had never wept before. Yes, I am. You are my daughter. You are my only child. You are the heir to everything I have, and I will never ever let you go again. I will spend the rest of my life making up for the years we lost." The truth unraveled quickly after that. Under pressure from Richard's lawyers and the police, the old nurse who had been paid off all those years ago was found. She confessed everything. Margaret had paid her a large sum of money to take the newborn baby away immediately after birth and leave her in a distant town with a poor family. She was told to obtain a false death certificate and make sure the baby could never be traced back to the Thompson family. That poor family was Mama Ruth, a widow who had been struggling to survive. She had taken baby Lydia in, not knowing the full truth of where she came from, only that she was told the mother had died and the family couldn't keep her. Mama Ruth had raised Lydia with love despite their poverty, and before she died when Lydia was 15, she had given her the locket saying only, "Your mother wanted you to have this. Never lose it." Clara and Vanessa stood frozen in absolute shame and terror. Richard turned to them, his voice like ice, his eyes cold and hard. "You mocked my daughter. You called her names. You humiliated her day after day. You planted false evidence to destroy her and throw her out onto the streets. Pack your things. You're both fired. And you should be grateful I'm not pressing charges against you for what you did." Clara fell to her knees, her pride completely shattered. "Sir, please. I was wrong. I was jealous. I didn't know. Please give me another chance. I have a family to feed." "You should have thought about that before you tried to destroy an innocent girl's life. Get out of my house. Now." Vanessa tried to speak, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, but her voice failed her. For the first time in her privileged life, she had no power, no defense. Security escorted them both out, their heads down in shame. The other staff members bowed their heads, fear evident on their faces, wondering if they would be next. But Richard's voice softened slightly. "The rest of you, if you have never participated in mocking or hurting Lydia, you may keep your jobs. But know this house has a new mistress now, and things will change." He turned back to Lydia, his voice soft and filled with love. "Everything I own is yours. This house, this company, the cars, the properties, everything. It always was yours by right. It just took us 22 years to find each other again." Lydia shook her head, still trembling, still unable to fully process everything. "I don't want your wealth, sir. I don't need mansions or companies. I just want to know I belong somewhere. I just want to have a father. I want to know what it feels like to be loved, to be wanted, to have a family." Richard smiled through his tears, his heart full for the first time in 2 decades. "You belong here. With me. You always did. You always will. And I promise you, for every day of pain you endured, I will give you a lifetime of love." David stood nearby, watching the reunion with tears streaming down his face. Lydia looked at him through her own tears and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for believing in me when no one else did. Thank you for finding the truth." David nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "You deserve this. You always did. You were always meant for more than scrubbing floors." Months passed. The mansion transformed completely. Lydia was no longer the maid who woke before dawn to clean. She was the heir, the daughter, the future of the Thompson legacy. But despite her newfound position and wealth, she never forgot where she came from. She never forgot the pain of poverty, the sting of mockery, the loneliness of being unwanted. She walked the halls in grace and beautiful clothing, but her heart remained humble. Her father enrolled her in university to complete the education she had been denied. She studied business and social work, determined to make a difference. Together with her father, she opened the Grace Foundation in her mother's name. It provided scholarships and support for young women in poverty, especially those who had been abandoned or orphaned. She gave jobs to those who had none. She built shelters for homeless people like she had been. She became the voice for the voiceless, the hope for the hopeless. David remained by her side through it all, no longer as a driver, but as her closest friend and confidant. Their friendship grew deeper with each passing day. He had seen her at her lowest and never judged her. She trusted him in ways she trusted no one else. And over time, that friendship became something even deeper, something beautiful and pure. Richard, for the first time in 22 years, smiled genuinely. The darkness that had haunted him since Grace's death began to lift. He had found his daughter, and in finding her, he had found his purpose again, his reason to live. He cut all ties with Margaret, refusing her letters and calls for forgiveness. Some wounds, he said, were too deep to heal. One evening, as the sun set over Lagos, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Lydia stood on the balcony of the mansion. It was the same balcony where Vanessa had once stood to call her name in mockery. Now it belonged to her. Her father joined her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Do you ever think about them?" he asked quietly. "Clara, Vanessa, my sister." Lydia nodded slowly, her eyes on the horizon. "I do, and I forgive them. I know that sounds strange, but I do." Richard looked at her in surprise. "After everything they did to you? How can you forgive that?" Lydia smiled softly, her face peaceful. "Because holding on to anger would only hurt me more. They took enough from me already. I won't let them take my peace, too. Besides, you mocked my poverty, but it was my pain that shaped my purpose. I would not be who I am today without those struggles. I would not understand the suffering of others. I would not have the passion to help people. So, in a strange way, I'm grateful for what I went through, even though it was hard." Richard's eyes filled with tears of pride. "You have your mother's heart. Grace was exactly like this. Forgiving, compassionate, strong in ways I never was." Lydia looked up at the sky, her hand touching the locket she now wore openly. "I hope she's proud. I hope she knows I survived. I hope she knows I'm okay now." "She knows," Richard whispered. "I'm sure she knows. And she's proud, just like I am." And so ended the story of Lydia, the maid who became a daughter, the rejected who became royalty. Dear viewers, Lydia's story teaches us something powerful. Never despise the humble. Destiny can dress in rags today and wear a crown tomorrow. Honesty, patience, and kindness will always open doors that cruelty cannot close. What do you think about Lydia's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments section. I would love to read from you. There is another very interesting story I'll be uploading in a few days. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification bell so you'll be the first to know when it drops. If you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next story.